It is time for some Flames of War. Now, this is one of the more recent releases for the Flames of War line for 4th edition, the Bagration Soviets. I'm bringing this out particularly because this book thankfully includes something that I've had since 2009, 2010-ish. There is a unit in the Soviet Army that I have been playing for about a decade, literally. That is the Soviet heavy tank forces. I have IS-2s as an option, but it's primarily IS-85s. So I'm going to talk today about something that most people will have to do at some point in their gaming career. How do I convert my old forces to the new edition? Now, I've looked at this book pretty thoroughly. There's some things that are missing, but let's go ahead and talk about the differences here. I'm going to bring out screenshots and whatnot. Originally, my force was a PDF force, which is funny because I can't believe some people weren't aware there were PDF-based army lists in Flames of War. They literally did that with in-depth abandon. In this force, there is a primary focus on the IS-85, which I liked, but the options were so slim. One rifle company, a 122mm battery, which could be backed up by the crash booms, could also bring in the 152s. There's one available slot of anti-aircraft, and not much more. It was a very light, soft list as far as options is concerned, because the focus was all on the one tank. That one tank did everything for this list. And it can. The Soviet IS-85 is very much a all-rounders vehicle. It moves a little bit slow, but compared to a lot of tanks, it works just fine. It operates the exact same gun that the T-34-85 does. So it has the same punching power, the same rate of fire. It's pretty much a better version of the T-34-85, unless you like your long, quick dashes. As all things go, the change from one edition to the other kind of made a big difference. There's now the less granular point system with the 100-point standard instead of the 1,000-point. Really, it was 1250 or 1500. But without that standard, it's gotten a lot more compressed. In this book, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what we have here as options for this these forces. So here's the Soviet forces overall. We're going to be taking the IS-85 Guards Regiment. We'll be taking a few things from other places as well, but that's just me thinking ahead. Here's the IS-2s, which are actually cheaper in this edition. They still suck. They still have a mover fire thing where if you don't mover fire, you're suffering a +1 penalty. Sorry guys, that's how it's working. Here's the actual 85 Tink Regiment. Once again, it looks kind of like things did in the past where we only have one real side option besides having tanks. But the way it works in 4th edition is that full spread I showed you earlier. You can pick anything from that you really want to. Although you're restricted if you're taking a regiment, you can only take black boxes as support if you do that. So here I have a mandatory IS-85 headquarters, fine with me, up to 4 IS-85 tank units, fine with me. They max 5 tanks each at 40 points. That's almost half my points if you stop and think about it. I'll be taking a minimum of 2 of those and 8 points there. That's most of my force. Most of it. So looking at life, I'm thinking if I want to take a more rounded force, I'm probably going to drop down to 2, 32 points apiece. That frees up 8 points per unit. So it gives me 16 extra points to play with when it comes to buying stuff. And that's a good thing. So let's go ahead and say I'm going to take the headquarters and 2 clone units of 32 points worth, 4 IS-85s apiece. Now, in late war, just because you have 10 armor kicking around does not mean you're invincible. There are things that will kill you. It means you're pretty dang hard if you come across a medium unit, but having 9 tanks on the board and other things to support them is going to be a good choice. Taking a unit of 3, I would only do if I knew my opponents were into lighter forces. If I literally knew my opponents were not into heavy tanks, only then would I take that. In fact, if I knew my opponents were in the heavy tanks, I might just, shave off some decency and go buy the IS-2s instead of buying the IS-85s here. So that's a thing as well. Now when it comes to options that we have besides the tanks themselves, we have a normal SMG company. We have a hero SMG company. I might look into that, but the SMG company, I'm pretty sure will have more bodies. And since SMG companies are, let's face it, they're very lightweight when it comes to their reach and power. They're just there to essentially hold objectives. So I might just go with the normal instead of the hero because I'm wondering what the hero's got special ratings, but it's probably not as good. And then the Engineer Sapper Company. I've been wanting this forever. In the old options, in 3rd edition and 2nd edition, the IS-85 Tank Company did not have the ability to bring any kind of specialized infantry. But here we have the Engineer Sappers, which are the best. These guys have special rules. They can swap out infantry teams for specialized guns. They have the ability to smoke before an assault. That's freaking great. These guys are amazingly good for a Soviet infantry force. And I'm thinking, what's it like? I think I've looked before. It's like 9 points for a minimum sized unit. I'm thinking I might as well go out and buy some Engineer Sapper infantry and add that to my collection because that's really good. So, but for right now, building this list, I have what I have in my collection. I'm probably going to go with the SMG Normal Company. Let's go ahead and look through. We have the normal tanks. SMG Company, normal SMG Company. 17 points for 15 of these guys and 1 Commissar team. And the Commissar team, I think, is the leader in this new edition. So, that's a lot of points there. My 16 points that I saved up, plus 1, would take up all that. I'd have 15 guys kicking around. But I feel like having a little bit more than just a lot of bodies on the table. I've discovered in past games that's a great way to just, soak up damage. But it's a bad way to actually play the game because on the aggressiveness, you have to do human wave tactics. What are our here's Hero SMG Company? For 5 points, we get 5 SMGs and a Commissar. For 7 points, we get 7 SMGs and a Commissar. That's fair. That's really fair. I think I'll take the 7 points here, and then the spare Commissar team. I like that. We're going to go with that instead. So that's fine. I'm thinking also, with the points we saved, we're going to throw in here 5 OT-34s at 13 points. Why? Well, I'm a tank company. So I've got plenty of tank fighting options, but I'm on the heavier side, so if my opponent brings lighter tanks, he can swarm me. I need something to guard myself against lighter units, infantry units, and against medium tanks ad hoc. They're not the best against medium tanks, but they've got decent armor, a decent gun. They've got the flamethrower, which is nice against infantry. That's how I kill infantry. But it's just they're an extra body tank-wise. And I'm thinking about spending the 13 points that I wasn't spending on tons of infantry to get this guy. I can use the main gun against entrenched positions. I can use the main gun against enemy small tanks, support guns, anything like that. And of course, the flamethrower is really great for killing infantry. So we have that. By the way, I think it still has a machine gun. Of all things, it still has a machine gun on top of the flamethrower. That is hilarious. I like that. And then, just to round things out, this is my old option since day one, the 122 millimeter artillery battery. I've had that forever. They are my long-standing artillery forces. They've got decent range, decent firepower. Of course, anti-tank for artillery got smashed in this edition, so you can't say anything about that. And of course, they're decent in direct fire. They're not great, but they'll hold an objective pretty decently against armored forces. Armored forces won't really stand a chance against them if they're going up against an objective. So, for 8 points, that's 8 plus the 13 plus the 32 times 2 plus 8 and plus a 7. That makes 100 points worth. So we've gotten our 100 points, the standard game, for a version 4 game in my old version 2 and version 3 army. So let's go ahead and take a look at this army and see what it looks like bringing it on the table. All right, and here's what the forces would look like in the miniature. I have, it's pretty much evenly matched between, well, no, it's not. This force actually has a pretty good balance where most of it is actually under the command of the main force, so it counts for morale purposes. My only support units are the T-34 flamethrower boys and my artillery post. So each of these IS-85 tank units is providing morale for the force according to version 4 rules, whereas the support units are pretty much disposable. Those T-34s are not going to be held in reserve. They're going to be out there doing stuff. I hate the reserve rules, and thank God I'm playing a tank company. I'm most likely going to get around that, unless I'm facing off against another tank company, which it's down to a roll-off at that point. But still, we have a bunch of fun things to take care of. These guys, of course, will be holding down the objective for any possible reasons. These are not, I mean, you can use them in human wave tactics with all those numbers, but the SMG is a very short-ranged weapon, and in Flames of War, range means everything. I'd rather have assault rifles than SMGs, but hey, we're Soviet. We take SMGs. So, oh well. Makes us good in assault, though. Most units in version 4 that have SMGs have a +1 to their assault rating, just built in. So yeah, these guys, these 4 guys might be tossed into reserves if necessary. And then, of course, in this version, if you have like artillery reserves and they don't have transports, they just show up on the edge of the table, and that's good enough for me. I can put them on the edge of the table closest to my own objective and work from there. The 8 points there plus the 32 points here combines to make the 40 points out of 100 that you'd have to throw into reserves. Did I mention I hate reserves? I hate reserves. You should be able to either fight with your entire army or have your reserves at your beck and call. You have to usually wait till turn 3, and then you have to start rolling dice to make sure they arrive. I mean, that's semi-realistic, but in a game, it's also annoying as all heck. The 2/3 of your army is going to be facing down 100% of their army, and so congratulations. You are forced on the defensive, and you have to play smart. I've done it before, but my God, is it annoying, and it makes for a less fun game, which is why I say Flames of War is my second favorite game. But in any case, this is the force. As you can tell, that front line of armor would be very hard for a lot of forces to fight. I think Panther units might have it easier. Other IS-2 units might find it a bit easier to fight. When the British finally come out with comets, they'll be able to fight this force pretty easy. But usually Soviet big cats are the only force that would look at this and say, time's going on. This force is actually really good to fight American tank forces with, because most American tank forces max out at 7 armor at this point. Operation Unthinkable brings in the jumbo, but jumbos aren't commonly available to each and every, they're not entire units worth of jumbos. So this force would actually be a really good choice to take on the United States with. And those guys, I mean, the only thing that's missing from this army is reconnaissance, but reconnaissance is really gimped in this version of the rules. You only get a little bit of advanced deployment out of reconnaissance. You can't do crazy things like go across the board or anything like that. But in any case, yeah, this is the IS-85 force. They are ready to use in version 4, and for the most part, there's nothing that the enemy can throw at me that I can't try to handle, unless of course I've got reserves and I'm facing down with minus the artillery and -4 tanks. Oh well. Could I fight off an enemy with just those forces shown there? The full units shown there? Yeah, potentially. Those tanks are going to get really busy. I'll be honest about that. And those infantry are going to be praying for their lives. But other than that, yeah, we should be doing fine. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully in the future you can get in some good Flames of War games with a painted army.